What's up, Blake? It is good to be back with you again. And before we dive deep into some fun LSU breakdown,
Okay.
I have decided to give you a gift for the big 400, man. 400 shows. That is a lot of Blake. So, as you know, I've given you some of my favorite cards in my collection, right?
Hold on.
Pull it out, baby. Pull it out.
Boom shakalaka.
Look at that, man. Look at that on-card auto, baby. And the purple pin. It's one of my all-time favorites right there. So I'm actually going to send you the card of your favorite player of all time. It is none other.
Jeremy Hill.
No.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, tell Carter Bryant good night, and we'll see. It's not funny. It's not funny. It actually is pretty damn funny.
That is this.
Look at that mammoth of a man, Fletcher Cox.
Look at that, man. Look at that.
A beast, bro. A beast. An absolute beast, man.
It is crazy whenever you go up against somebody athletically superior and you're like, yeah, this is fun. I need to find something else. All right.
Yeah, you know what? Instead of taking the beating, let me talk about other guys that take the beating. How about that?
But no, it's an exciting time. Congrats on 400. And this is why I vibe with you so well, man, is that you're good at taking a joke. Not many people in the just sports media sphere, they just take life so seriously, right? They take every last little bit of analysis so serious, like it's the end of the world. So that's my favorite thing about you. That's why you and I become really good friends. That's why you're still on my refrigerator. And this is what's really cool, right? We're so close to the same period, but I want to give you some credit, okay? On the Twitter Spaces last night, you broke the Auburn story, right? And I was like, look, man, Schefter's sources. I loved it, baby. I got super excited. I wanted to toot your horn, man, because, of course, you took a good joke right here. But I also wanted to give you some credit for breaking a story on a team you didn't even cover. That's really freaking impressive. And this is obviously good news. I'm sure you and Mike talked about it. It's good news for Travante Citizen. Now, this is very interesting, Blake. So I started doing a deep dive on Travante Citizen, and what's really fascinating is that there's this movement of fantasy football called Campus to Canton. I don't know if you've ever heard of this or not.
Yeah, I've heard about it. Yep.
Right. And I'm starting to get into it. And there's also this thing called Devy, like hashtag Devy. And it's just like college fantasy and their future projections. And one guy I see moving up boards is Travante Citizen, right? Because he doesn't have a lot of tread on the tire. And something else that is correlated to NFL success is your body type, right? And Citizen is well over 200 pounds right now. So he's got a great build already to be an SEC back. So I've seen him slowly moving up boards. You know, he wasn't the most highly rated prospect. I'm getting excited about the possibility of him potentially being a Tiger.
Well, and look, Mike did talk about it. He said that he feels confident. And look, it does revolve, Carter, around the Austin Davis story. Now, I do appreciate you giving your boy the credit where credit was due. You know, because look, you know this, Carter, when people think that you do something and, you know, they think you get it from other places, but really before it was even reported by anybody or, before it was even on Twitter, Facebook. And just to give some people, if you didn't hear, we were on Twitter Spaces last night. I got a couple texts from people around the SEC. One person, Carter, from the SEC office and says, what's going on with Brian Harsin? And I'm like, well, what happened? And he told me that Austin Davis was stepping down. But I do think that is interesting. I don't know if Cadillac Williams can be the only sole source to keeping Travante Citizen. I mean, Carter, they don't have an offensive coordinator. And with that being said, I don't know if it now comes down to LSU and Florida. Now, Florida is going to sign the Etienne kid. Is there a situation where you have two backs there? Does Florida say, hey, ATM, we don't want you. I don't think I don't think that's just not going to happen.
No.
So I think now, Carter, unless he just really, really wants to go to Auburn, I could see Javonte Citizen coming up into that ranks and at a back that I really do like. But I do think it's an interesting development, Carter, how the trickle effect happens in college football when you go from an offensive coordinator at Auburn leaving until a LSU recruit or a Louisiana recruit could be going to LSU. But nevertheless, Carter, let me ask you this: are you just holistically? Are you excited and surprised by what Brian Kelly and Mike Denbrock and Matt Housecoming probably going to be, here tomorrow? I'm assuming from some things that I hear officially. Are you really excited by what you've seen from Brian Kelly and this staff?
Yeah, I give Ann a lot of credit. He said that not too long ago, that this win's huge for LSU, the Bengals over the Chiefs, because Matt House is able to move on to his next phase of his career, which is going to be the most important phase of his future. The one thing that kind of excited me, and look, you know how I am, Blake, and a lot of people know how I am about recruiting visits. Every recruit is going to have a spectacular visit, right? I mean, we sometimes as LSU fans just get caught up in our own little bubble, and we think it's like the only school on the planet. All these schools have great campuses. All these schools have great facilities in the SEC. However, that visit, by me speaking to people I trust and just looking at the pictures and the ambiance, this really was a phenomenal weekend for LSU. And to take it one step further, I think, just reading the boards, hearing that Matt House was on Zoom calls with Harold Perkins, that's a very specific detail that obviously makes you feel a lot better about potentially getting him. So obviously that's key. And, this is even more key. It's so important for that head coach and the offensive coordinator to get along, right? Offensive play calling is a very meticulous thing. And, Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy have had a lot of success because they get along really well, right? You never hear about distress between those two. And I don't think you're going to have to worry about that with, Kelly and Denbrock, because they go back. They know how to work, right? You're seeing it with Auburn now. It's a disaster when your head coach and offensive coordinator don't fit and don't see eye to eye. And it can divide a locker room. It can send mixed messages. It can obviously affect your quarterback mentally. So, that's something very key as well. And you should feel really good about that as an LSU fan, simply because nothing has happened. Everything is so positive right now.
I missed what you said earlier. It was kind of funny. It was the slight little Joe Burrow sent Matt House packing home to his new home.
There you go.
What does Joe Burrow not do for LSU?
Everything.
Oh God, I mean, LSU needs help in recruiting. Let me just go ahead and send these suckers packing. I mean, you got to love that man. Look, if he wins a Super Bowl, I might get a Joe Burrow tattoo. Not really.
You should.
But I might get an LSU tattoo right here on my heart.
So it's interesting. This is very interesting though. Like, Joe Burrow has just changed the entire sports collecting market too, whether it be his bobbleheads or his cards. You can't buy them now. They're so expensive. And
to your point, I went to go buy a black Joe Burrow jersey this morning, $343. By the way, I wake up at like 5:30 a.m. to get my day going and everything, to prep and get, do things on just, I'm a maniac. I was like, ain't no way I'm paying $343. I mean, I'm just not doing it. But just to give, Carter, the NFL was sold out.
Right. And this is what's really fascinating, right? So the way like sports collecting and sports marketing goes is everybody's a Joe Burrow fan, right? This is a transcendent thing. And this is even pre-Super Bowl, right? So I go to a card shop in the heart of Alabama, right? I'm in Birmingham. And what's really fascinating is all these kids are walking into the store, and it's Fairhope, Alabama, and they all wanted Joe Burrow cards. I mean, we're talking we're in Alabama. And, my girlfriend has a lot of family in Alabama. They're all Joe Burrow fans. There is something very magnetic about him that's very different. It feels different. And that's not just an LSU thing. This is transcendency. You don't really see it that often, right? And it's a little bit different because, we view him as one of ours, but sometimes you see an athlete go beyond that, right? And that's exactly what he's doing. And all these different things, whether it be jerseys, whether it be cards, whether it be what he was talking about, Kid Cudi hitting him up and LeBron James.
Right.
Your life changes when things like this happens. And, beating Patrick Mahomes the way that he did and sitting in Las Vegas packing and, what he did to Tennessee on the road. This is a different level thing. And I can easily see Jamar Chase doing the same thing on the trajectory he's going, right? With him and Justin Jefferson. So it's pretty crazy that we knew all three of these guys just so well, but now nationally and maybe even internationally, these guys will continue to grow.
Well, and Joe Burrow, I saw this at this morning, Carter, when I got on Twitter. He had right below, I would say, around 330 followers on Twitter. I just looked it up. He has 626,000 followers on Twitter now.
Insane.
And look, that's when I say that to the impact that people don't realize what he's done. It's been amazing. Carter, I do want to get to some recruiting, though, with you before we get out of here. You've been very high on Harold Perkins. I've watched Jacoby Matthews more times, than I can count on, my hands and toes. I'm going to take a little bit of a twist. Do you think that they're able to get 4 or 5 of these guys? And if they do, who do you think that they are? And, well, I'll just say that last question because I think it's something that we could dive in a little bit deeper. But who are some of the guys you think's trending and you could see at LSU come Wednesday?
Yeah, I think you should feel really good about Jacoby Matthews at this point, right? Mm-hmm. There's just too much going in that direction. Obviously, Corey Raymond going to Florida is a big deal, right? Mm-hmm. Billy Napier's really talented. You got a lot of viewers in Lafayette. We got a ton. Semper, obviously, big Lafayette guy. Look, there's no doubt about it. Billy Napier's really talented, and Jacoby very well could go to Florida. But your best friends are going to LSU. You played 7-on-7. The 2 guys you played 7-on-7 with. I mean, come on, that's the dream, right? Being a defensive back at LSU. So I probably feel the best about that one, right? I'm not a recruiting insider like a Spiegelman or Scarborough, right? I'm not on their level, but you would have to feel pretty comfortable about that. And this is the twist here, something I can comment on. That safety room is wide open, right? That hybrid linebacker and passing sets, you can get on the field if you can cover in space. And obviously special teams reps are going to be there right away for him. So, correct. It's rare. Not every defensive back gets true freshman reps, as many as Jacoby would get next year. So I feel pretty good about that. Obviously, I feel really good about Citizen now. Frank Wilson's the best recruiter ever at LSU, and he's been all over it. He obviously sees the talent in this kid, so you feel good about that. Obviously the Caleb Douglas thing is very interesting. 6'4" receiver, obviously great in traffic. That's probably his best attribute. Obviously a tall, lanky Brian Thomas Jr. type of prospect with really high upside. It's not the end of the world if he doesn't come to LSU, right? The other defensive back, the Jalen kid, LSU needs defensive backs.
Right.
Yeah. Once again, we don't know a whole lot about him. But he obviously really fast player, would definitely help out a lot. Now, what's really interesting is Harold Perkins, right? That's the guy that, everybody wants to know.
Your number one guy. Correct me if I'm wrong, but your number one guy, correct?
Yeah, I think he's the best player in 2022. Now, what's really interesting is we still don't know what his best position would be, but, sometimes you watch someone and they're just such a great football player, they'll kind of sort of figure it out, right? And that's what he's special at, right? He just makes plays. He's not, the lankiest guy. He doesn't look like a pass rushing edge linebacker. Him and Jacoby Matthews have very similar body types, which is kind of strange. And we look at him a little bit differently, but he's just special, right? He's got great ball skills. He's got a great nose for the ball. And he is my number one guy over Travis Hunter, over Walter Nolan, over Evan Stewart. And I think he's transcended. I really do. And, we see what Will Anderson can do to a defense. We've seen what Clowney could do for the defense. And we saw, the Caleb Von Chason, right? That position, that jack linebacker position could just change so many things for your team, right? And he could be one of these guys that you can slowly work in as a pass rusher and third and long, and you're a big offensive tackle and you're going up against Mason Smith. And then the next thing you know, you have, this guy that's just the next level speedster coming right at you. We'll see. Obviously, his recruitment's been all over the place. Obviously, his family has heavy ties to LSU. It does seem as if his family wants him to go to LSU, but there are more factors than just family when it comes to his recruitment. So I hope he goes to LSU, but we'll see. I'll say in my gut, I just don't think it's going to happen, but the LSU in me thinks it's going to happen, and that's the side of me that matters, right?
Well, and Carter, so that was good. This is the second question that I have, and I think a good debate here that maybe nobody's talking about. If Brian Kelly is, let's just say he just gets 4 of the guys, not even all 6 of them. Okay. Maybe you miss on Citizen, but maybe you get a Perkins. Maybe you miss on a Perkins, you get a Citizen. However you want to do it. I really don't care of the 4. Does this tarnish, and I don't want to say tarnish, but does this give a different outlook for the coaches that preceded him? Maybe an Ed Orgeron, Les Miles, how even maybe a Nick Saban, because Carter, you're coming in here and it shows how much the school is worth it. Maybe not always the coach, right? Because now you got 4. So it's something that nobody's really talking about, but it's something that I keep thinking about. It's of like, well, everybody tried to convince me that Brian Kelly was going to come here and suck, but now, and recruiting specifically, but now, Carter, we're on coach 4. And you're really trending well in recruiting. I mean, this is an LSU thing, right? I mean, it's not just a coach thing.
Yeah, so this is where, you could pat yourself on the back. I'm looking at every single one of you watching this, whether it's on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, MySpace, Tinder, Grindr, wherever you may be watching this live stream.
To my wife, I'm not on Tinder or Grindr, but continue.
Yeah, there you go. But wherever you may be watching this, okay, be lucky you're an LSU fan. Right. The brand is really strong, right? It's the strongest brand outside of Alabama in the SEC. I truly do believe that.
I agree with you.
I know Georgia just won the national championship, and I know they have a lot going in their favor right now, but LSU and the NFL LSU thing is a real thing. Recruits see Jamar Chase in tears with a former teammate on the opposite team hugging. That matters a lot to players. That resonates a little bit more with players and maybe even us, right? They're like, God, this is a real brotherhood, right? Because ultimately it matters how the players view the program. And that's the cool thing, right? Brian Kelly doesn't have to reinvent the wheel to come here and get the job done. LSU is still its brand, and you owe a lot to the Patrick Petersons who made LSU cool, the Kevin Falks, obviously my personal goat, the Tyrann Matthews, that really turned this thing into what it is now. And it's the players who have really done that, not so much the coaches. So, yeah, I know there's so much focus on Brian Kelly and the dances and it's not a good fit or whatever. Who cares? Because LSU is LSU, right? You need to be competent. If you're competent, you can find a way to win 8 or 9 in year 1. So, yeah, that's such a good point by you. And the second thing, and I think this is also really key, is you don't need to look at this February signing day the same way you would look at it, a few years ago because of the transfer portal. Maybe, just maybe, the best thing would be for LSU to not get all 6, right? Because then that would only leave you with one final spot for a transfer. And I still think there's going to be some market movement with different players. So once again, I know back in the day, Blake, remember, we would have the big Bayou Bash in the Baton Rouge Convention Center. And it would be,
Right.
you would see grown 40-year-old men in socks and sandals crying, "Oh my goodness, Shiro Davis with the Texas. What's going to happen to us?"
And Les Miles and Gunnar Kill doesn't have a chest.
Doesn't have a chest. And then Tim Williams goes out, and people would legit melt down. You really don't need to do that anymore, right? So let's just say, you're, as much as I love Harold Perkins, if he doesn't come to LSU, it's not the end of the world, right? Because that could be a slot for someone who truly in their heart of heart really wants to be at LSU. So it's absolutely key to keep in mind as we move forward to Wednesday.
Last thing, Carter, and you've been fantastic. Do you think, well, I wonder, there's two different things that can go here. We're going to pick up on the Tyrann Mathieu thing in a longer debate because I really want to give Tyrann Mathieu more than 5 minutes here. Right. But I agree with you. Do you think LSU needs to go get a transfer quarterback? You talked about leaving some of those slots open. Carter, I can't stop talking about it. I quite honestly can't stop thinking it. And now you got Caleb Williams telling Wisconsin he's not coming. So with that being said alone, are you in the camp with me that even though Miles Brennan returns, that they still need to kick the tires and look at another QB?
Yeah, definitely Caleb Williams, right? He's special. Like if you were having a college draft of quarterbacks right now, Bryce Young consensus goes number 1. Stroud goes number 2, but I would only say that with what he has at Ohio State. He's better for the Ohio State offense than either one of the other 2 quarterbacks, right? I'm still taking Caleb Williams over CJ Stroud. You definitely kick the tires on that, right? Look, you throw the ball to Kayshawn, Jack, BTJ. LSU's got the best crop of receivers. You could argue Alabama, and you could definitely argue Ohio State, but those places already have quarterbacks. So, you definitely make a move for Caleb Williams if there is interest. Now, I will say this. Obviously, we do have crossover viewers. I bring up Caleb Williams a lot because he really, he would seismically move the needle for us, and we would be ready to compete for the college football playoff. I wouldn't say next year, but the next, right? Now, this is where it gets fun, Blake. There's a lot of viewers that would say, look, what if another quarterback comes in and nuts transfers or whatever? Well, if Brian Kelly views that quarterback as a true difference maker, then you do it. You just do it. And the thing is, Garrett Nussmeier's sample size for a true freshman actually was good. It was fine for a true freshman, whose season ended with an injury his senior year. It was fine, right? Was it spectacular? No. Now, he could be great. He was always a year 2, more than likely year 3 guy, but Caleb Williams is great right now. And he had some poor performances, and he did get a little too cocky, right? He was smiling before that Kansas game, and he got shut out in the first half against Kansas, right?
Right.
But he's special. And with Kayshawn and Besh and an offensive line that could be a little porous and inconsistent next year, to have someone mobile who can really change the outlook of, protection breakdowns, you definitely take a look at that. Now, Blake, as far as the other quarterbacks are concerned, it comes down to how you actually scout the different quarterbacks and also how you feel about Miles Brennan. So if anyone's in the chat right now, if you are a big Miles Brennan fan, let me know. I'm very interested, right? Because Miles is obviously a really solid quarterback, but at the same time, can you really trust Miles Brennan? And I know, Blake, you've been harping on this, pretty consistently on your shows and on Twitter. You don't know about Miles's health, right? And he hadn't taken a hit in quite some time. So it is kind of a scary thing to think about if you are an LSU fan.
3 Marvel movies have come out since the last time Miles Brennan took a significant snap?
3.
And you know how long it takes. Oh, by the way, one got delayed for a year. I mean, oh, by the way, they also had 3 10-episode series. Yellowstone became a thing.
Wordle.
By the way, I swear to God, I thought Wordle was a Pokemon. Swear to God. I was like, gotta catch them all. I swear to God, I thought it was a Pokemon. But
I mean, goodness gracious.
Yeah, I agree with you. You kicked the tires. Dude, I really appreciate you coming on episode 400. Dude, there's not really anybody in the media or YouTube space that covers LSU that I trust more than you, and you know that. And to every listener that's not watching or subscribe to the Power Hour, go do that. Now, I don't interact a lot, Carter, on the questions, but I sit there and listen, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try to rephrase what he just said in my own way because that's a really damn good take, and I do that often more than not. So I appreciate you coming on for episode 400, my friend.
It's a big deal, man. It's good seeing Pooh Bear in here. I see Simper. I see Nurse Court. Some members of the Booger Band Club. Really cool stuff, man. I really appreciate it. Booger Band Club as always. Well, I don't have my. Oh, I got 2. There you go. It's fun, man, and it's a fun time to be an LSU fan, right?
Very much.
And one final thing. You know what's very interesting, Blake, is the SEC West is going to be loaded with quarterback talent next year, right?
I agree.
We're going to see the prime of Bryce Young. Jackson Dart might not be that great, but he's got the best play caller in the conference coaching him next year. KJ Jefferson, it may not look the prettiest. He had 6 games last year, Blake, where he had a QBR of 78 or better. That's outside. I mean, that's good. That's really good. It's hard to do that. So yeah, Will Rogers, whoever you want to mention, it's going to be a fun thing. And I think, as high as many people might be on Miles Brennan, you do really need to sit and think about how good the quarterback is going to be next year in the West. Because I think Miles can obviously throw with those guys, especially with our receivers on the outside. But well, soon that's a scary thing about.
I mean, Carter, if we're being honest, also at Florida, I think Anthony Richardson's kid. I mean, the athletic. The athletic ability that he has. And look, Jake Peets is considered the worst offensive coordinator to some in LSU history. And Carter, you know how bad he was. And Max Johnson threw 27, touchdowns. Say hello, Mr. Carter. Say hey, Mr. Carter.
Every time I jump on here, every time, man. Every time. I love it.
Well, we're gonna get the new studio, but we're
upgrading studios.
We're upgrading studios. Yeah.
There we go, man.
That's what happens when you do 400 straight episodes.
Well, you need an upgrade, man. Well, I appreciate